Morning sunlight filtered gently through the trees, casting golden light on the porch where blooming bougainvillea swayed in the breeze. Birds chirped cheerfully on the tiled rooftop, and a soft wind brushed past spotless glass windows. In a small villa nestled deep within a quiet neighborhood, life moved like a gentle melody. Daniel, a gifted architect, always began his mornings with a warm cup of coffee. His eyes filled with quiet affection as he watched his wife, Clara, bustling in the kitchen, and his little daughter, Ellie, darting around with bursts of laughter. To Daniel, it wasn't just happiness, it was the rhythm of his life, the quiet anchor that kept him grounded. Clara was the sunlight of that home, always smiling, always tender. And Ellie was the laughter, the little spark that warmed every corner of the house. Daniel used to believe that nothing in this world could take that family away from him. But fate always arrives when we least expect it. And when it did, it came like a breeze, sudden, silent, and unstoppable. It was a warm afternoon after a gentle rain. The streets still shimmered with puddles, like broken mirrors reflecting the soft sunlight. Clara had just gotten off work, and like every day, she hurried to pick Ellie up from preschool. It was never a chore. It was the part of her day she cherished most. Ellie, only 4 years old, ran into her mother's arms like a playful breeze, her laughter tinkling like wind chimes. Clara scooped her up, kissed her soft hair, and the two waved cheerfully at her teacher before walking to the car, hand in hand. No one knew that would be the last time Clara's smile lit up the world. On the drive home, a large truck lost control on a slippery curve. Tires screeched, metal crunched, glass shattered, and screams echoed from nearby bystanders. Clara's car was struck hard from the side, rolling over several times before landing in stillness by the roadside. By the time emergency responders arrived, Clara wasn't moving. She had passed away on the spot. In the back seat, among shattered glass and twisted metal, Ellie was still alive. Trembling, a small cut bleeding on her forehead, she clutched her teddy bear and cried without sound. Daniel arrived at the hospital in a panic. The moment he saw Clara's lifeless body, he collapsed. Holding her close, his body shook as tears poured down, his voice cracking with sorrow. "You said we'd grow old together. Why did you leave me?" From that moment on, Daniel's world shattered, completely. Since the day Clara left, the villa was no longer a home. It became a house of memories and silence. Daniel stopped going to work. He didn't shave, he barely ate. Each day he sat motionless in Clara's favorite armchair, eyes fixed on a framed family photo on the shelf. Around him, Clara's presence lingered, her clothes still hung in the closet, her shoes waited patiently by the door. He couldn't let go. Every morning, he woke up hoping it had all just been a terrible dream. And Ellie, the 4-year-old from before, now moved through each day like a shadow. She didn't speak, didn't play, didn't laugh. At night, in restless sleep, she would softly whisper, "Mummy?" A sound barely louder than breath, but heavier than any scream. The grief in that house had no voice, but it seeped into every wall, every breath, every vacant glance. 2 years passed, but the sorrow didn't lift. It clung to the villa like an old, stubborn fog that refused to fade. Daniel lived like a ghost, a shell of who he used to be. And Ellie, no matter how bright the spring sun or how golden the summer fields outside, inside her heart, winter had never ended. Grandma Nora, Daniel's mother, finally left her quiet village to move in with her son and granddaughter. Though her back ached and her hands trembled, she rose early every morning to cook, clean, and try to keep the house from falling apart completely. But even the strongest hearts wear down with time. Nora was growing tired. One afternoon at the market, while struggling to lift a heavy sack of rice into her car, her knees nearly gave out. "Ma'am, let me help you," came a gentle voice. She turned and saw a young woman, thin, worn clothes, tired eyes, but a gaze that was bright and respectful. Her name was Maya. Orphaned at a young age, she had grown up in a group home, later adopted, only to be abandoned again when her adoptive family had children of their own. Since then, Maya had done any work she could to survive, carrying loads, washing dishes, sleeping wherever there was shelter. Grandma Nora looked at Maya and saw a flicker of light amid the ruins. She asked, "Would you like to come work at my house? Help with cleaning, housework? You'll have a place to stay." Tears welled up in Maya's eyes as she nodded quietly. Grandma Nora didn't know if this was the answer, but a mother's heart whispered, "It's time to bring something new home." The next morning, just as the sun peeked through the trees, Maya stood at the villa's gate with a worn cloth bag in hand. She wore the neatest dress she had, her hair combed back, her face washed clean, though her eyes still carried traces of fatigue. The gate opened. Grandma Nora welcomed her with a gentle hug. "Welcome to your new home," she said. Maya stepped into the shaded courtyard, quietly marveling at the peaceful beauty of the place. But the moment she entered the house, she felt it. Something heavy in the air. Grief. It had soaked deep into every brick, every breath. That evening, Grandma Nora called Maya into the kitchen, her voice soft but serious. "You're a good girl, Maya, but my son, Daniel, he hasn't been himself since his wife passed. He lives like a shadow, always angry, always silent. You must be very patient, work hard, don't ask questions, and most importantly, never touch Clara's photo." Maya nodded. She understood she had stepped into a broken home, and nothing broken can be mended without respect. The next day, Grandma Nora said goodbye, returning to the village to care for Grandpa Ben. Before leaving, she gave Maya one last hug. "Keep the house in order and be kind to them, even if they can't be kind to you yet." Since Grandma Nora left, silence returned to the villa. Maya worked quietly, mopping floors, tidying rooms, doing laundry. Everything was spotless, but the house still felt cold, as if no one truly lived there. That afternoon, while dusting a photo frame near the piano, Maya paused. She stared at Clara's gentle smile and whispered softly, "She must have been a wonderful woman." "What do you think you're doing?" a sharp voice cut through the air. Daniel stood on the stairs, eyes icy. "Don't ever touch that photo. That's my wife, not some decoration for you to clean." Maya lowered her head, heart pounding. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but Daniel had already turned away, leaving only his grief behind. That night, Maya carried a tray of food to Ellie's room. She knocked gently. No answer. "Ellie, it's me, Maya. I brought you dinner." Still silence. She slowly opened the door. The room was dim, curtains drawn tight. Ellie sat curled in the corner of her bed, clutching her teddy bear, her gaze empty. Maya walked quietly to her, kneeling beside her. "You don't have to say anything if you're not ready, but I'll be here every day." She placed the tray on the bed and smiled softly. "I made carrot soup, your favorite." Ellie didn't look. A second later, she suddenly knocked the tray off the bed. The bowl shattered. Soup spilled across the floor. Maya didn't yell. She simply bent down, picked up the pieces, wiped the mess, and said gently, "It's okay, I'll clean this up. I'll bring dinner again tomorrow." "I'm not giving up." That night, when the house was quiet, Maya returned with a small stool and an old storybook. "May I tell you a story?" she asked softly. Ellie didn't answer, but she didn't turn away either. "So," Maya began, her voice warm and slow, telling a tale about a girl named Amira who had no friends until a butterfly landed on her shoulder and everything changed. Just beyond the hallway, Daniel stood frozen in the shadows, listening in silence. Since that first night Maya read to her, she hadn't missed a single evening. Each night she brought a new book, telling stories in a warm voice, changing characters, making silly sounds, just to catch a glimpse of light in Ellie's eyes. The little girl still didn't smile, but she no longer turned away. She no longer rejected Maya's presence. Then one night, Maya came without a book. She sat on the small stool beside Ellie's bed and whispered, "Tonight, I want to tell you a different story. Not a fairy tale, my story." Slowly, Ellie turned her head, eyes wide. "I don't know who my parents are," Maya began, her voice trembling slightly. "When I was a baby, I was left at the steps of an orphanage. No name, no note. A kind woman gave me the name Maya. She spoke of cold nights, of sharing tiny toys with other children, and of the heartbreak when her adoptive family abandoned her after having their own children. I slept in markets, worked wherever I could, just to eat." Ellie blinked rapidly, something shifting inside her. And then, as Maya whispered, "But you had a mommy who hugged you every day, told you stories, you have a daddy, you have grandparents, you're not alone." Ellie suddenly sat up, lips quivering, and without saying a word, she threw her arms around Maya. Tears streamed down her cheeks like a storm finally breaking. "I miss my mommy," she choked. Just outside the door, Daniel stood frozen, his heart clenching, then softening for the first time in years. That afternoon, red maple leaves danced across the backyard. Ellie sat beneath the tall tree, crayons scattered around her, tongue peeking out as she concentrated on her drawing. Maya stepped outside with a towel in hand, ready to wipe her face. Seeing Maya approach, Ellie quickly hid the paper behind her back. "Maya," she called out, her eyes shining. Maya knelt down, smiling. "What is it, princess?" Ellie held out the drawing. On it were 3 stick figures, one tall, one small, and one with long hair. Beneath the sketch, in childish handwriting, were the words, "Daddy, me Maya." Around them was a big, bright red heart. Before Maya could say anything, Ellie looked up and asked softly, "Maya, can you be my mommy?" Maya froze. "What?" she whispered. At that moment, Daniel stepped onto the porch to take a phone call, but stopped cold when he heard the question. Ellie glanced at him, then turned back to Maya. "You make Daddy smile again. You make me feel safe. You and Daddy, you fit like puzzle pieces." Daniel slowly walked over and took the drawing from Ellie's hands. He stared at the simple lines, the innocent handwriting, and the hope etched by a child's heart. Ellie whispered, "I just want a family, one more time." A few days later, Daniel came home earlier than usual. He stepped into the kitchen where Maya was washing dishes. "Maya," he said softly, his voice deep and warm. She turned, slightly startled. "Yes, sir?" Daniel smiled, a rare but sincere smile. "Please get ready tonight. The 3 of us are going out to dinner." "Really?" Maya asked, surprised. Daniel nodded, his eyes glowing with something unspoken. "It's a special evening." That night, Maya walked down the stairs in a soft, pale blue dress, a gift from Grandma Nora. Her hair was pinned neatly, with gentle curls falling along her cheeks. Daniel stood frozen for a moment, as if the world slowed around him. "You look beautiful," he said softly, his voice catching with something he hadn't felt in years. Maya blushed, whispering, "Thank you and no more sir, okay?" Daniel chuckled. "Just call me Daniel." Ellie squealed, "Where are we going? Will there be ice cream?" They arrived at a cozy garden restaurant twinkling with lights. A table had been reserved, complete with Ellie's favorite mango juice. The evening was filled with laughter, napkin games, and silly stories. When dessert arrived, Daniel suddenly stood up and knelt beside Maya. Ellie shouted, "Daddy, propose." Daniel took Maya's hand, his gaze steady and tender. "You came into our lives like a miracle. You healed my daughter and me. You reminded me how to smile again. Let me give you what you've never had, a family that will never leave." He opened the velvet box. Inside was a simple, elegant ring. "Maya, will you marry me?" Maya looked at him, then at Ellie, holding her breath with sparkling eyes. Tears welled up in Maya's eyes as she nodded slowly. "Yes, I will." Ellie jumped up. "Hey, Mommy," Maya said, "yes." Daniel slipped the ring on her finger and embraced them both, as if holding everything his heart had ever longed for. 1 month after the proposal, the once silent villa bloomed in shades of white and gold. Bougainvillea spilled over the porch, a soft breeze carried the sweet scent of flowers, and laughter rang through the air. On that morning, Maya wore a simple, elegant wedding dress. Beside her was Ellie, dressed in a white floral gown, her hair braided, carrying a small basket of petals, youngest flower girl, but with a smile brighter than the sun. Daniel stood at the end of the aisle, eyes fixed on the 2 girls walking toward him, one he loved, one who was his entire world. As the vows were read, Daniel gently slipped the ring onto Maya's finger. They shared a tender kiss as the guests applauded. Ellie shouted, "Daddy, kiss her again." Laughter echoed through the garden. Grandma Nora wiped away her tears while Grandpa Ben held her hand tightly. They looked at their son, alive again, full of love. The next morning, Ellie wore her crisp new school uniform, her hair tied neatly, one hand tightly holding Maya's. "Are you nervous?" Maya asked. Ellie nodded. "Yes, but it's happy nervous. I'm going to tell my friends I have a new mommy, a daddy who smiles again, and a brand new family that feels really, really happy." Daniel stood by the car, pride gleaming in his eyes. My little princess is growing up." As Ellie walked through the school gates, Maya stayed still by the fence, eyes shimmering. Daniel came beside her, whispering, "Thank you for believing and for staying." That afternoon, Maya sat beneath the tall maple tree, the same spot where Ellie once made her first drawing. The little girl was back with her crayons, carefully coloring a chalk drawing on the ground. "All done," Ellie giggled. She held up a drawing, 3 figures, Daniel, Ellie, and Maya, standing hand in hand. Above them floated a 4th figure, a woman with long flowing hair, soft white wings, and a warm smile. "That's Mommy," Ellie whispered, resting her head on Maya's shoulder. "She's not here anymore, but she's watching us from the sky." Maya wrapped her arms around the little girl, tears quietly falling. Daniel walked over, kneeling beside them. His eyes landed on the drawing, not of 3 people, but 4. The family was complete now. Even if one heart lived in heaven, the light she left behind never faded, in the laughter, in the warmth, in the memories. True love had never left. It lived on, in the laughter, in the drawings, in every heartbeat of that home. And it always would.